The old guard is exhausted and they have finally stopped biting their tongues.
They turned our blood, sweat, and rivalries into TikToks and Diddy parties. This ain't the league we built.
The ironclad foundation laid in the 90s is being dismantled piece by piece in real time. The modern roster is far too fragile and complacent. Tragically, this is what basketball stardom has devolved into. But the twist cuts deeper. It is not merely the athletes. There is a shadowy machinery operating in the background, far more sinister than the public suspects. Stay locked in because I am about to dissect exactly how this sport has mutated, the reasons the Hall of Famers are speaking out, and the buried truths the executives would prefer kept quiet. Just wait until you hear Magic Johnson's exposure of the puppet masters actually pulling the strings today. You have to feel the shift when you tune in now, right? It used to be simple. If a franchise player could walk, he was on the floor. Zero debate, zero cop-outs. Men like Jordan, Bird, Magic, and O'Neal lived by that code. Those titans punched the clock every single evening because the sport required nothing less. Nowadays, you see LeBron sit out the second night of a back-to-back, and the masses accept it as standard procedure. In the old era, that kind of move would have incited a mutiny in the arena and online had the internet existed. It goes beyond the absences, though. The entire atmosphere has shifted. Veterans from the 90s will look you in the eye and say the current crop could not endure that gauntlet. Kevin Garnett essentially went on record stating exactly that.
I don't think anybody in this generation could have played like 20 years ago, if I'm being 100. And this is that. Everybody in our league.
Frankly, he is spot on. In those days, stepping onto the hardwood meant entering a nightly war zone. The relentless schedule, the psychological and bodily trauma, the sheer fortitude to push through the pain. That spirit has vanished, and the product suffers for it. The statistics back this up undeniably. During the 90s, you had scores of guys completing the full 82-game circuit virtually every season. Jump to the present and the scarcity is appalling. Often you can count the Ironmen on one hand. The association has effectively swapped ruthless competition for load management and calculated rest days. Strategically, it preserves careers granted, but for the paying spectator craving genuine nightly battles, it is a slap in the face.
And as an entertainer, I want to show, right? So if the guys are coming to watch me play, I don't want to miss that opportunity.
Do not even get me started on the corrosive effect this has on the culture of the game. Historically, basketball was defined by grit, dignity, and delivering a spectacle unavailable anywhere else. The greats demanded attendance, playing through injury if necessary, and scrapping for every single ball. Now the discourse revolves around brand deals, social platforms, and individual stat padding. That is precisely the source of the old guard's fury. Before the league transformed into a shiny entertainment machine, its foundation was built on rivalry's character and the visceral sacrifice of men who left it all on the court. Let us rewind to that seminal showdown in 1979 Indiana State versus Michigan State, or more accurately, Bird versus Magic. You imagine March Madness is massive today. Think again. That broadcast remains the highest-rated collegiate matchup in history. Understand the dynamic. Bird was the stoic working-class hero from Indiana, while Magic was the dazzling showman from Michigan. That feud literally rescued professional basketball. Skip ahead a few years and those two titans entered the league. Bird touches down in Boston, Magic in Los Angeles. Celtics versus Lakers. By that stage, raw skill was only part of the equation. It became a collision of identities, conflicting philosophies, and pressure that dwarfed any modern regular season contest. And this is where the story goes off the rails. The association back then was not the influencer-driven celebrity gala we see today. Those men clocked in every single night. The records speak for themselves. Bird competed in 717 out of 738 possible matches during his first 9 years. And Magic. He viewed nightly performance as a solemn duty to the crowd. That was merely the prelude because once Michael Jordan hit the scene, everything went nuclear. Jordan was not simply another headliner. He was the apex predator. And his dominance extended far beyond the paint. He transformed the sport into a worldwide fixation. In 1984, he inked the deal with Nike. By the following year, Air Jordans didn't just hit the shelves, they exploded onto the scene, moving millions of units straight out of the gate. All of a sudden, the NBA wasn't just something you watched on a screen. It became a lifestyle, something you lived, wore, and breathed. Jordan transcended the sport entirely. The man became a global icon, and that transition, that was the tectonic shift that turned the league into a worldwide obsession. But the wild part is how that branding was built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated grit.
I hate it, I dislike it. I was just at Michael Jordan's 60th birthday party. He pulled me to the side. And you know, we talked about that for 30 straight minutes.
Really? Because back in the day, you guys
played every game.
There was
no rest.
We wanted to play every single game. We couldn't wait to get out there on the court.
Magic Johnson played through the agony through the injuries because sitting out wasn't even in his vocabulary. And Jordan. The guy was an Ironman, 82 games a year, practically never missing a tip-off. The ripple effect was undeniable. Ratings skyrocketed. Rivalries became appointment television. The fan base wasn't just watching casually, they were obsessed, emotionally hooked on the narrative. You had Bird versus Magic Boston versus LA, and then Jordan ruling the 90s with an iron fist. That era gave the league a soul. It made professional basketball absolutely essential viewing. So when you look at the modern game, the load management, the soft officiating, the nights off the social media circus, you realize just how much edge we've lost. But here's where it gets interesting. If you thought the clashes of the 80s or the dominance of the 90s were intense, you need to grasp the sheer magnitude of their commitment. Back then, grinding out a full 82-game schedule wasn't a milestone. It was the job description, and these cats took it personally. Every single matchup mattered because the fans expected to see you perform. They spent their hard-earned cash for a show. So what possible justification could you have for not delivering exactly what you signed up to do? That is why it's almost laughable to me when these young guys take rest days. And the kicker, they don't even have the decency to be embarrassed about it. Whenever they bring up load management or scheduled rest, they say it with his chest out, like that's how the game is supposed to be played. The drop-off is glaring. The data doesn't lie. Between 1980 and the year 2000, the league was full of Ironmen completing the full 82-game slate. In 1980, alone 56 guys went the distance. In 1981, it was 57. In fact, from that point until the turn of the millennium, the lowest number of players to finish a full season was 50 way back in 1991. Fast forward to the modern era. In 2016, only 18 players showed up for every game. By 2022, that number plummeted to just 5. You heard that right. 5 players. That statistic tells you everything you need to know about the state of today's league. And the narrative gets even wilder when you dig into the stories behind those stats. Remember 2016 Kobe Bryant late in the fourth against the Spurs slips going for a board. He dislocated his right middle finger. I'm talking ugly, the thing looked like the number 7. But what did the Mamba do? He limped to the sideline, had his trainer Gary Vitti pop that joint back in, right there on the floor, and walked back onto the court like nothing happened.
He dislocated his finger, and it can be really, really difficult when it goes back into place. And then as soon as it goes in, he was gone. Like I patted him on the head, like, okay, it's gonna be okay. Next thing I know, he was gone. That in and of itself showed the toughness and the tenacity of Kobe Bryant and the will.
He finished that game with 25 points shooting with a dislocated finger. Let that sink in. Imagine if that happened to a superstar today. He'd probably be on medical leave for a month. What makes that moment hit different is that Kobe was already battered. His body was breaking down and his previous seasons were cut short by major injuries. Yet when the finger popped, he didn't fold. He pressed on. And how about Larry Bird? The man was playing with a broken back, literally dealing with herniated discs, and he still demoralized anyone who stepped in his path. And then naturally you have Jordan's legendary flu game. You know the one. Game 5, 1997 Finals. Jordan is dealing with severe food poisoning, barely able to stand. Yet he goes out there and drops 38 points. He leaves it all on the hardwood, finally collapsing into Scottie Pippen's arms as he's carried off. Speaking of Pippen, he didn't mince words when asked about the softness of this new generation. Here's his take.
We just had basketball, and it was a lot easier to focus on our craft and our job and grow from that. We didn't have a lot of the distractions that, players have now with social media.
Even Allen Iverson undersized lightning quick. Taking a beating every night, would never dream of skipping a game. To him, that was blasphemy. Every night was a war. The idea of resting while you were healthy. Forget about it.
You could never come to me and talk to me about load management. Like, AI, you're not playing tonight. Why? We're resting you. You're resting me like you're resting me. That's not load management. That's a suspension, man.
Yeah. And Shaq agrees with him.
Think the NBA's become like too sensitive and political?
Oh, yes. Very, very sensitive, very soft, very political, but...
Back in the day, the league offered zero safety nets. You either stepped into the arena to play or you stayed home. Open your feed now and it's 50% noise about load management, wondering if LeBron or Giannis will actually lace up for the second night of a back-to-back. That is the massive disconnect from the era when titans like Kobe, Bird, and Jordan clocked in every single night. It went beyond simple grit. That reliability forged the blood feuds that became the league's heartbeat. Rewind to the late 80s, a time when the Chicago Bulls and Detroit Pistons existed solely to annihilate one another. Detroit was not just talented, they were the bad boys, a collective of brawlers looking for a street fight. They played mean physical ball driven by a pure, unadulterated hatred for Michael Jordan. They engineered the Jordan Rules, a tactical manifesto designed specifically to neutralize him. And by neutralize, I mean physically dismantle him by any method necessary. The moment he touched the rock, they headhunted him with the intent to shatter his body. The animosity ran so deep that Jordan still holds onto that grudge to this day.
How legitimate was the hatred between those Bulls teams and those Pistons?
Oh, I hated him. And yeah, he carries even to this day.
The tipping point arrived in the 1991 Eastern Conference Finals. After years of taking physical beatings from Detroit, Chicago finally kicked down the door. The buzzer sounded and the Pistons marched straight to the tunnel. No handshakes, no respect, driven by something deeper than just losing. It was a final middle finger to the league, a statement that they were leaving on their own terms while refusing to validate Chicago's ascension. Jordan metabolized that disrespect, turning it into the high-octane fuel he needed to bulldoze through the Lakers in the finals. For the spectators, this was not just a buzzer beater, it was the cinematic climax to a multi-year war. Years of cheap shots, trash talk, and dirty tactics coalesced into that singular defining visual. That specific brand of tension elevated the NBA from a sport to a Shakespearean drama. Then you had the Coastal War Celtics versus Lakers, the definitive East-West collision. Bird's squad was blue-collar grit, while Magic's crew was Hollywood Flash, the literal definition of showtime. These were not just championship series, they were epic sagas where Boston took 1984 and Los Angeles struck back in 1985. Every possession carried weight, and eventually that spotlight shifted to the fierce battles between the Pacers and the Knicks. Reggie Miller at the Garden tormenting Patrick Ewing became pure iconography. Miller dropping 8 points in 9 seconds is the stuff of legend. It transcended the box score. The animosity was thick enough to radiate through the television screen. See, the magic was not in the mechanics of the game, but in the narrative friction surrounding it. Then the landscape shifted. Free agency and the super team era dismantled those long-term storylines as guys started packing their bags every summer. Rivalries died, replaced by salary cap math and statistical analysis, rather than genuine bad blood. Even Joe Mazzulla, the Celtics head coach, went on record saying he misses the physical altercations.
The biggest thing that we rob people of from an entertainment standpoint is you can't fight anymore. We should just bring back like fighting.
I mean, I'm not against that. I'm not against those days in the NBA.
The civic vendettas have faded. You do not get that Detroit versus Chicago or Boston versus LA heat anymore. That was authentic. Those franchises possessed distinct identities and cultures. Globalization is great for the brand, sure, but it neutered that tribal, my city against yours energy. The new generation is raised on the AAU circuit mercenary travel teams and personal branding from middle school. Very few play with genuine territorial pride or roots. Continuity was key. The Bad Boys were a unit, the Bulls had Mike and Scotty, and the Celtics had Bird, McHale, and Parrish. Staying together allowed the bad blood to boil over time, and without that, the league feels a bit hollow. We still get otherworldly athleticism and viral highlights, but the substance is different. Frankly, the intensity has evaporated, and the spectator experience suffers for it. Complacency and fragility have become the accepted standard. Stars sitting out games for rest is normalized now, but every scratch damages the product. Fans drop serious cash to see icons like LeBron, Giannis, or Luka, only to stare at an empty spot on the floor. A breakdown from the MIT Sports Analytics Conference actually quantified this exact issue. When a marquee name takes the night off, ticket values plummet anywhere from 9 to 24%. That is a drop of roughly $9 to $33 a head, and the impact bleeds out everywhere straight into the TV ratings. Look at the last run. The big national broadcasts on ABC, ESPN, and TNT averaged about 1.53 million viewers. That is down 2% from the previous year. On paper, it might not look like a catastrophe, but look at the bigger picture. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of people who simply decided it wasn't worth their time to tune in. And this isn't a coincidence. ESPN's own numbers prove that matchups featuring top 10 talent pull 35 to 40% more eyeballs. So when the heavy hitters Giannis, Luka, Braun, or Steph ride the pine, the league takes a massive hit. True hoop heads like us, we are locked in for a Wolves Thunder scrap on a random Tuesday regardless. But for the general public, if the stars aren't shining, the night loses its electricity. It is a bitter pill watching the soul of the game get swapped out for an era obsessed with cold analytics and sports science. Teams dictate rotations based on efficiency models and fatigue algorithms now. Intellectually, I understand the play. They are protecting their assets, trying to keep legs fresh for the spring playoff push, but the collateral damage is ugly. The legends see it too. Jordan himself didn't mince words. He views this whole load management culture as completely superfluous. When you hear that phrase, what comes to mind for me, it is simple. It is a crutch that shouldn't exist. Charles Barkley didn't hold back either, calling load management absolute garbage, noting the irony that modern players have world-class medical staffs, private jets, and massive contracts, yet they clock fewer minutes.
Stop this BS with load management. We can't keep crapping on the fans where we're like, wait, yeah, you're making $70 million. You can't play basketball 4 days a week?
Even Charles Oakley said this.
Are you a fan of this load management?
No.
You're a fan of?
No. I think that you should want to play. They paying your salary. The kids come to the game. They want to see you, especially the team you want to play once at home, once on the road. You got to play these games.
The kicker is this generation isn't even operating under the same brutal rule book the OGs survived. Back in the day, a defender could actually put hands on you. Hand-checking was standard operating procedure for decades, right up until the league outlawed it in the 2004-2005 season. The pitch was freedom of movement, but let's call it what it was, a red carpet for the offense. Guards went from surviving enforcers like Bill Laimbeer to gliding through wide-open lanes. Predictably, the scoreboard lit up and defense went on life support. That is not rose-tinted glasses talking, that is the data. Pre-ban teams scraped together about 93 points a night. A decade later, they were pushing 102. Now we are looking at 114 points per game, numbers we haven't seen since the early 70s. You can tip your hat to those movement rules for that inflation. But that was only the first domino to fall. Then the spreadsheets took over. Teams crunched the numbers, realized 3 beats 2, and the mathematical revolution began. The algorithm favored the paint and the arc. The mid-range game died and everybody fell in line. In 2013, squads were chucking up around 21 deep balls a game. Today, the average is north of 35. The Celtics alone launched a staggering 3,482 triples in the 2024 campaign. It completely altered the texture of the sport. The old way was grit punishing drives, bruising defense buckets you had to bleed for. Now it is pace and space. Gone are the days of Shaq clearing out the paint with his elbows. Instead, you have 7-footers like Karl Anthony Towns and Porzingis pulling up from the logo. Even the guys capitalizing on this soft era admit it changed the landscape. They acknowledge the shift. Just listen to JJ Redick break it down.
My argument right now is bring back hand checking. You know what hand checking is going to do? It's going to lead to more shooting fouls.
Yeah. The product is slicker, now faster, but it is also sterile. Maybe a little too polished. You miss those blood feuds because nobody is allowed to really get in anyone's grill anymore. And don't even get me started on the celebrity industrial complex that swallowed the league. Branding and social feeds are devouring the sport. These aren't just ball players now. They are walking conglomerates, content mills, PR strategies, and sneakers. It pulls the focus away from the hardwood. Just look at LeBron. Rewind to 2022. He drops this footage. You know the saying, nobody throws a shindig quite like Sean Combs? Right, that is the reality. Yes, sir. Now, look me in the eye. Can you picture Jordan the Mamba or Larry Legend getting caught up in that kind of circus? Not a chance. Take a hard look at him. This is supposed to be the king of his generation. It does not stop there either. Recall that bizarre promotional spot he cut for Hennessy spoofing his own decision.
In this fall, man, this is tough. In this fall, I'm gonna be taking my talents to Hennessy VSOP.
Nobody is arguing against building an empire off the hardwood. Jordan's deal with the swoosh remains the titan of sports marketing, but it never distracted from the reality that he was the absolute deadliest assassin between the lines. If anything, the shoes just added to the mystique. Today, you cannot run from the content machine. TikTok Reels X. Every monster jam or flash of brilliance gets sliced into micro moments instantly. Great for clicks, sure, but it reduces a war of attrition into snackable nonsense, stripping away the grandeur we used to witness. The objective changed. It is no longer about securing the win. It is about chasing engagement on a 15-second highlight. Then you factor in the runway walks, the manicures, the lifestyle branding. Icons of the past projected a certain steel, a ruggedness they broadcast at every turn. Now you have got rookies like Jared McCain preferring to film stuff like this.
I hopped into a coffee shop, and then my jaw dropped in shock when I saw a girl who had cool pants. They made me want to dance. I started to...
It is unavoidable. The sport itself has become just one vertical in a massive multimedia conglomerate. While that global footprint prints money for the executives and pads the bottom line, it is a slap in the face to purists who lived for the hustle, the blood, and the rivalry. Watching the soul drain out of the game, that hurts. Where does the association go from here? We are standing at a precipice. Granting rest days might buy these guys a few more years, but at what cost to the product? Picture the league 5 or 10 years down the road. Your hero sits out 20 or 30 matches a year and nobody bats an eye. Maybe the box scores look cleaner, but from the stands, the stakes evaporate. The Knights just do not carry the same weight. How do we stop the bleeding? First off, the talent needs to buy in. Management rolled out new rules in the 2023 season to punish healthy scratches, but it is a band-aid on a bullet hole. Another route: slash the schedule. Drop it from 82 nights to 72. Make every tip-off. Carry consequences because clearly this modern crop lacks the stamina for the full 82, or tie the accolades and the checks to attendance. You want the hardware? You play. Make showing up a non-negotiable statistic again. The league has to inject meaning back into the winter months. Currently, it is just a sea of scheduled victories and rest management opportunities. Develop the rookies fine, but give the paying customer a battle that feels genuine. Incentivize durability, crack down on the maintenance days, and ensure the story is about legends lacing them up every single night. Finally, resurrect the gladiator mentality. The science is light years ahead. Cryotherapy, elite conditioning, world-class staffs. But the audience was raised on heroes who taped it up, gritted their teeth, and played through the agony. The game is desperate for that hardness. Here's the bottom line. The skill level is off the charts, but if they prioritize spreadsheets and marketing over blood and sweat, the crowd is going to walk away for good.